Night. Thank you so much for inviting me to take part. So, as Maureen pointed out, I was born and brought up in the UK. I was originally a Londoner, and I moved to Israel in the 1980s, full of enthusiasm for what the state of Israel might achieve and keen to be part of the rebirth of my nation. I spent several years working as a lawyer and a mediator. And then I came to see that the issue of Jewish-Arab relations and the question of how we're all meant to live together in this small, beautiful, troubled place has to be addressed. It's not that I saw my Arab fellow citizens and the Palestinian people over the Green Line as enemies, but to be honest, I hardly saw them at all. My everyday life didn't involve contact with anyone really other than Jews. And once I started working in the field of interreligious relations, I became fascinated, both personally and academically, by issues of peace and reconciliation. I've been privileged to work with extraordinary people outside my usual national comfort zone, which has led me on a journey with consequences far beyond the professional. I started working in the field of interreligious relations in the year 2000. Actually, one of my first assignments was doing media work around the visit of the Pope to Jerusalem in the year 2000. Later that year, I was lucky enough to organize a visit of the Peace Council to Israel-Palestine. The Peace Council was a group of senior religious leaders from around the world. And as it happens, they were here in Israel over Holocaust Remembrance Day, which in Israel takes place in May, not in January, like the International Day. And after attending a memorial event, the renowned Cambodian Buddhist monk Maha Ghosananda asked, "Why do you remember your suffering? Why don't you let it go?" I was pretty horrified. I really couldn't, I couldn't hear the question. I didn't know what to do with it. It felt completely inappropriate. The following day, we visited a Palestinian refugee camp. And after the camp director spoke, Maha Ghosananda again asked, "Why do you remember your suffering? Why don't you let it go?" And suddenly, when the question was directed to someone else, I could listen, I could hear, I could begin to think about it. Now, I'm Jewish, and we Jews are big on memory. Okay, memory is a really big thing for us. And we're not that great at letting go of our pain. But that international interfaith encounter was for me the beginning of a journey to understanding that there are so many different ways of remembering suffering. In Jewish tradition on Seder night, the Haggadah tells us that in every generation we must see ourselves as if we had come out of Egypt. The exodus from Egypt isn't merely a historic or a mythic event, but one we must each see ourselves as being part of. But what became clear to me after many years of working in the field of interfaith peace building is that what we're meant to be remembering is our exodus from Egypt, not our slavery in Egypt. We're meant to remember the moment of redemption, not the suffering. What a difference that makes. Now, why am I talking so much about suffering and memory? Well, first, of course, today is Remembrance Sunday in the UK, and the whole question of how we connect to and remember our fallen is pertinent today. But also because interfaith work is peace-building work, and the dynamic of our conflict in Israel-Palestine has become one of competitive victimhood in which we compete to see who has suffered more. And in the process, we are digging ourselves deeper and deeper into the cycle of violence. How do we break that cycle? I want to mention Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Zichrono Livracha, a great Jewish religious and moral leader who sadly died yesterday. He wrote in his book, The Dignity of Difference, about 3 models of society. Society as a country house in which immigrants are guests of the hosts. Society as a hotel where everyone is a guest and no one is invested in building a joint future. Or society as a home that we build together. I think that's a powerful model, and I think that's the one we have to adopt if we're to overcome our differences and learn to live together. At the Rossing Centre, we're working to build an inclusive society here in the Holy Land. We want the Holy Land to be a place where people of all religious and national groups connect and work together to make it a home for everyone. We work particularly in the formal education system, in the belief that schools are an essential element in shaping the adults of the future. Most of our work takes place within Israeli society, where we're working to overcome separation, fear, and ignorance in order to foster better interfaith and Jewish-Arab relations. So to give you an example, we have a schools program which enables 11 to 13-year-olds to learn about each other and meet each other over the course of the year. You see, in Israel, schools are entirely segregated. We have Jewish schools, we have, first of all, we have Jewish schools from a number of different streams. We have Christian schools, which contain both Christian and Muslim students, and we have general Arab schools, which are almost 100% Muslim. And so kids don't meet each other. They can grow up. You can get to, if you're a Jew, you can get to the age where you're called to serve in the army. And if you're an Arab, where you go to university without ever having really met each other. So if schools are segregated and Arab and Jewish kids never meet each other, how do they learn to connect with each other? How do they learn not to be afraid of each other? We all need to learn to see diversity as a blessing, not as a curse or a threat. So each year we work with school principals, teachers, and around 800 children. And in our most recent principals meeting just last week, we asked them all to tell each other about their first visit to a place of worship of a different religion in Israel, not abroad on holiday, in Israel. The vast majority said that the first time they went to a place of worship of a different religion was when they joined our program when they were already school principals. I'm hoping and I'm proud that their students will tell a different story if they're ever asked the same question, that they will be able to say that when they were 11 or 12, they went to visit a church and a synagogue and a mosque as part of their school curriculum. I hope that one day that will become the norm for all children here and everywhere. In our high school program, we train teachers to conduct conflictual conversations in the classroom. How do we change the culture of discourse in our societies? We believe that teachers need to create safe space for difficult conversations, to allow students to express their emotions, including their fear and their anger and their frustration. There's a lot of that here. And then listen to different opinions and points of views. Learning to listen to each other is such a key mindset and skill, so key to creating real connection. And in recent years, we've seen what can happen when we lose the ability to talk to each other. We have a cross-border program bringing Israelis and Palestinians together across the Green Line, using a specially developed spiritual questionnaire and a unique form of dialogue to create deepest understanding and to motivate people to work together to build peace. There is so much fear and enmity embedded in our societies, and only by connecting at the very deepest level can we overcome our societal discourse and learn to live together. For the past 20 years, I've been working in this field in Israel-Palestine. It's been a deep and sometimes painful process of examining my personal and our collective story, and of seeing how our collective stories shape our futures. The change for me comes in dialogue, when I'm truly open, both to listening to the experiences of others and to sharing my own experiences in a genuine search for truth. Learning to connect and refusing to be enemies is not always straightforward. Connecting across enmity isn't a passive state. It has to be an active choice, and one that we are asked to repeat again and again and again. It can't be only abstract and general. When Jacob and Esau meet, Jacob suggests that seeing his brother's face, the face of his former enemy, is like seeing the face of God. Encountering the other in a spirit of reconciliation and understanding does indeed enable us to experience a small hint of the divine. These are the moments which give us hope to continue the journey, to continue working for truth, justice, peace, and to build a better future for us all. Thank you.